And we're live. Welcome to Love and Money Secrets TV. And today we are going to be continuing on our study of the Mitochondriac Manifesto by R.D. Lee. And we left off in chapter 4, page 37. And so we are starting in the section that says, how is this disconnection happening? So if you have your books, pull them out, let's read along, and let's have this discussion. And I want to thank Carol, my beautiful friend and Jim, who's tuned in from Yelm, Washington, to be on this broadcast and be my wonderful co-host. All right. So this is the number one reason timing errors happen, is because of a weaker electric and magnetic field in your brain. In your brain's suprachiasmatic nucleus. It actually has in the book the SCN, which that stands for suprachiasmatic nucleus. Then in your body, lower electrical charge in the suprachiasmatic nucleus slows down your brain's master clock so it falls behind that of distal organs. It's that simple. Nature's solution is DHA. As we'll talk about later, DHA is a very special fat that converts sunlight into DC electricity and back. More electricity makes your SCN run faster than peripheral cell clocks down below. That means down below the head. And as long as the suprachiasmatic nucleus has enough DHA or juice to run ahead of peripheral clock genes, orders get received on time and obeyed. Unfortunately, blue light destroys DHA in the eye, and that muddles the connection between the suprachiasmatic nucleus and the peripheral clocks that rely on the SCN for instruction. So let's talk a little bit about that before we move forward. So it says, unfortunately, blue light destroys DHA in the eye. So that is telling you that as we watch this broadcast, as we are watching this, whether it's on a desktop, laptop, iPad, notepad, or a cell phone, those screens all emit blue light. They have blue light, which causes blue light toxicity, which destroys DHEA fountain of youth hormone and DHA in the actual eyeball itself, which is going to then throw off the circadian. Circadian means circular. The circular rhythms of not just your wake and sleep cycle for your melatonin and your serotonin to go to sleep and to wake up, but all the different cycles inside of your body. You're starting to get a better picture as to why is it there's so much more illness, disease, syndromes, malfunctions, dysregulations in humans today than we had 50, 100, or 150 years ago, or 200 years ago. So here we go. Unfortunately, the blue light destroys DHA in the eye, and that muddles the connection between the suprachiasmatic nucleus and the peripheral clocks. Peripheral, that means that, outside instead of central. Like this is your peripheral nervous system, that rely on the suprachiasmatic nucleus for instruction. The liver then has trouble controlling blood sugar levels. You know that I talk about when we talk about the cell activation patches, I mentioned how blue light, it not only breaks your DHEA fountain of youth hormone, but it causes dysregulation in insulin, and it also spikes your glucose. So it says here, the liver then has trouble controlling blood sugar levels as one example, which makes the individual susceptible to diabetes and metabolic dysfunction. A second type of timing error is caused by the exposing your internal organs to, it has NN-EMFs. So if you're reading in your book, the NN-EMF stands for non-native EMFs. What is that? Non-native EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. Non-native, that means that it's not something that's naturally born from the earth. It's a man-made electromagnetic frequency, for example, from electronics. So for instance, using a tablet computer on your lap vibrates cells in your lower abdomen at billions of oscillations per second. That should be like nails on a chalkboard to every single one of you who has a laptop and you actually put it on your lap. I do say that's something that I've been telling people for quite some time. that it is an issue, especially people who've had fertility issues. I have said for years, it's like, a couple things. If you have a fertility issue, you don't want your laptop or any kind of electronics. If you're a police officer, do not have that radar or LiDAR gun on your lap. That's killing those little fellows that are in your unmentionables. And so that electromagnetic frequency from those devices do dysregulate those very sensitive and delicate organs, because your body is one ginormous sack of 56 trillion. It's more than 56 trillion electrons, because you have 56 trillion cells. And I don't know if anybody's ever done a study or a count of how many electrons you have in each cell. There's a lot. And so now you have something with an electromagnetic frequency like a cell phone, a laptop. If you're a cop and you have a radar or a LiDAR gun, and you're holding it in your lap, that has a magnetic pull because of the electrons. And now you can see how that's pulling in that area of the body, and it's going to cause all sorts of disruptions. Not a good thing, right? So it's making you aware. The other thing that I wanted to mention aside from electronics is, if you are having any kind of fertility issues, don't be in a hot tub or a jacuzzi, because that's going to kill all of the man's sperm because of the temperature. One of the reasons why a man has a scrotum is that, if the sperm were to be 98.7 degrees Fahrenheit, they would fry. So that's why they descend into the two sacs, so that they're at a few degrees cooler to maintain their vitality, so that when they're ready to be deposited, then they're able to fertilize an egg. Okay. So I hope that helped at least one of you out there who's been struggling with fertility and maybe going, oh my gosh, we go in the hot tub every 2-3 nights, 2-3 times a week. No wonder we haven't been able to get pregnant. I've had people who stopped doing that activity and all of a sudden they became pregnant. So as we were saying here, that speeds up clock genes in your reproductive organs faster than your suprachiasmatic nucleus, which make it appear as if you've got a hormone imbalance, when the real problem is signaling errors that make up organ malfunction. Starting to understand a little bit more about the human body. Quite fascinating and quite empowering. So this is one of the leading causes of infertility and sexual dysfunction. I haven't pre-read the book, by the way, so I'm reading it along with you. And sexual dysfunction in women and men today. To get your organs back in sync, try this Mito hack. Soak your bottom half in cold water and let the sun shine on your top half. This slows down the clock genes in your reproductive organs while speeding up your suprachiasmatic nucleus, leptin system, and the pituitary gland. Yeah, actually, there are some modalities that sometimes we use with people to help them, get rid of headaches or dysregulation of pain in different parts of the body, where we will have their feet in hot water, and then we will put an ice cube in their hand and on the governing vessel 14, which is at the base of your neck, the top of your spine. That neck bump, which is one of our favorite spots to put the patches that we use to repair and restore your body. That acupuncture is very powerful. So if you put an ice cube on that neck bump, or even above the neck, because you have governing vessel acupuncture points that go from the base of your spine all the way up, even through your hairline. The very top one here is your bliss point, right at the very acme of the very top of your head. Goes all the way down to governing vessel 22 here. So if you take ice cold either and put it on your neck, or you put it on that neck bump, and then you have your feet in hot water, oftentimes that will discharge whatever is the cause of your headache or other pains that you might have in the lower extremities of the body. Okay, so let's move on to the next section. It says a third timing error happens due to elevation. So every foot you ascend above ground level slows your suprachiasmatic nucleus a little bit. The smallest effect would be on a mountaintop, because you still have positive influence like grounding and the Schumann resonance to offset the slowdown. However, those who live in tall buildings, I just lost, in tall buildings are indeed mildly affected. So it's telling us that it's not as good or health, for health reasons, it's not as great for you to be in a tall skyscraper. The view might be fantastic from the top, but it's better for you to be ground level, obviously, because you have a natural grounding effect, and also because of this circadian rhythm match when it comes to your suprachiasmatic nucleus and your eye. So air travel is even worse. It's more disturbing to our brain clock than being in a skyscraper. Fortunately, exposure time for passengers is usually limited to just a few hours, whereas pilots and flight attendants aren't so lucky. They're exposed to timing errors, both acutely and chronically. And let's not forget, being irradiated by microwaves in a giant metal tube, it's like a giant metal bullet in the air, for hours on end can really hit those with heightened sensitivity hard. I'm going to pause right here because I tell people all the time, especially if you have multiple systems in your body, if you have your digestive system or your respiratory system or your endocrine system, or you have multiple systems of the body that are presenting with symptoms, and you may or may not have a diagnosis, but you have issues going on. So let's say you have a digestive issue because you have heartburn or you have GERD or something like that. And on top of that, you also have issues with your heartbeat. That means you have two or more systems that are going to be off. So you have to be more careful when you fly in a plane because you're now in a metal bullet that's 30,000 feet in the sky. You're getting microwaved. That's going to affect the beats of your heart. It's going to also affect your digestive system. And you're dehydrated because you're in this highly pressurized tube. So while you're being microwaved and now you're being dehydrated, you have to drink a lot of extra water and then make sure you get up at least once an hour to keep your circulation going. That could be just enough to throw somebody off, where it could throw them into a very unfortunate event or a very unpleasant experience where they may have to be wheeled out, on a gurney, and you don't want to put yourself through that, right? So, and I've had people who've done that, and I had somebody who actually came to San Francisco from overseas, and they had to like have a hospital, like an ambulance waiting in the runway to take her to the hospital because she was having an event. She wasn't an older person either, but she did have a pre-existing heart condition, woman in her 30s. So she's fine now. We have her on the patches and she's monumentally better, but it was quite a scary thing. So air travel can be a dysregulator as well. Okay, so let's talk about it. It says here, and let's not forget, being irradiated by microwaves in a giant metal tube for hours on end really hits those with heightened sensitivity hard. After being exposed to these influences in flight, the majority of people feel a little fatigued, but they get over it quickly. Others get wiped out, even within the same time zone, while an fortunate few possessing a low biophysical safety margin can suffer pulmonary embolisms, strokes, or heart attacks from the dreadful electromagnetics on board. So it's always a good idea to have plenty of fluids, plenty of water, not coffee that dehydrates you, but actual clear water. And again, to get up once an hour to go to the bathroom. You could use the bathroom as an excuse to get up in the front, the back of the plane, take turns, especially on flights that are over 3 hours. Super important because of those things that we just discussed here. So finally, the most disruptive timing hazard of them all is a space flight. Phew, most of us don't have to worry about this one. That's true, although Elon Musk is trying to make space travel available for everyone. But that does not come without its own inherent risks and issues, because our bodies are designed to be in an environment of gravity, not in an environment where you don't have gravity. So we all have seen and heard of astronauts who come back, and of course, because their muscles have not had any resistance to gravity while they're out in outer space, they come back and their muscles have atrophied quite a bit. And some of them literally collapse because of, the they've had decay inside the body, quite literally. So it's a rapid aging progression that happens from being in flight in outer space. So it says long stays in high Earth orbit decimate circadian timing, not the healthiest. So again, you might want to, if you're thinking about being an astronaut, if you don't mind the idea of a short lifespan, then go on right ahead. If you would prefer to live a longer lifespan, then a longer lifespan that's healthy, let's say, then you might want to reconsider those options. So it says here, long stays in high Earth orbit decimate circadian timing because up there you're disconnected from pretty much every mechanism that keeps your biology tightly regulated, including including light cycles, magnetism, grounding, gravity, good water, and the Schumann resonance. How tissues and organs talk to each other. So in their world, biochemists would say regulatory glands in the brain control organs primarily through biochemicals such as hormones, neurotransmitters. And for example, they say the adrenal control. So the adrenals control your stress levels through cortisol and adrenaline. Interestingly, we have a patch that reduces your C-reactive protein and your cortisol levels that are produced by your adrenals when you are frustrated, under pressure, you have a fight or flight response, you're anxious, you have panic attacks, stress that gets regulated. And so we have this, what we call the happy patch, the Eon patch. So if any of you are interested, you can comment below, or you can join our Zooms at 12 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Pacific, or 7 p.m. Pacific to get more information on that. Next, the pituitary controls cell growth with human growth hormone, and the thyroid, number 3, controls metabolism through thyroid hormones, T1 and T2. All true, but the link between endocrine glands in the head and organs throughout the body doesn't start there, nor is it the main way they usually stay connected. Hormones are merely the chemical messengers we observe between glands and organs. They're biochemicals released into the blood as a result of coherent communications around the body. Most important, hormones are simple one-way activators, not two-way connections, offering fast and accurate feedback. The job goes on entangled particles. So again, that job goes to entangled particles, a well-published physics phenomena going way back. That means that the particles at a microscopic level are literally entangled with each other, right? They're connected. So regulator glands talk to organs around the body through free radicals and their once connected electrons. Together, science calls them entangled particles. After an electron is removed from an O2 molecule, that's an oxygen molecule, to form a free radical, the electron and resulting free radicals maintain a bond between them through a phenomenon in physics that Einstein and others called spooky action at a distance. I used to love hearing Einstein talk about spooky action at a distance because it has to do with the observer effect, which I seem to be talking about almost every day now. Like twins that can each sense what's happening to the other, spooky actions at a distance as a particle, in this case, an electron that was once part of a whole atom or molecule, will continue to react as if it's still connected. So when you stimulate one of them, the other will react as if experienced that stimulation itself. No matter how far apart they are in space and time, they're forever yoked on a quantum level. A superoxide free radical may go to the liver, for example, while now liberated electron may travel to the brain. All the while, they know what their former particle state is experiencing through the quantum entanglement of particles. This is how regulatory glands in the brain collect information about the state of organs throughout the body. It is an important way nature keeps bodily systems on the same page, singing the same tune, all on the same page of music. Therefore, the more entangled particles you have in your body, the better that organ systems communicate and the more coherently they operate. So I want you to think about that for a minute, as you have multiple electronic components that are literally touching, whether you're laying down on it or you're putting some sort of electromagnetic frequency device on your body, like a cell phone or a laptop, an iPad, a notepad. Or again, if you're a cop and you're driving in your car or your motorcycle with that electromagnetic frequency generator, which is in that LiDAR or radar gun, it's pulling on the electrons wherever it is that it's sitting on your body. You know, think about the women who put cell phones on their chest, and then they come down with different things in their chest or their breast or both. Something to think about, putting your cell phone in your pocket. Don't want to do that because of that magnetic pull that that device has on the organs in that area. It's going to affect that area the most. It'll affect your whole body, but that area it's going to be affected the most. Repeatedly having your cell phone in your pocket or on your breast, chest, those Bluetooth devices, those earpods, those headphones, not such a good idea when you start to think about it. That's why I never liked using earpods, headphones, headsets. I'm not a big fan of that. All right. So regulator glands, we already talked about that. So like twins that can sense each other's happening to the other, spooky action at a distance says a particle, in this case an electron that once was a part of a whole atom or molecule, will continue to treat as if they're still connected. So when you stimulate one, the other will react as if it experienced the stimulation itself, no matter how far apart they are in space and time. They're forever yoked on a quantum level. A superoxide free radical may go to the liver, for example, while a now liberated electron may travel to the brain. All the while, they know what their former particle mate is experiencing through the quantum entanglement particles. This is how regulatory glands in the brain collect information about the state of organs throughout the body. It's an important way nature keeps bodily systems on the same page, singing the same note. Therefore, the more entangled particles you have in the body, the better the organ systems communicate and the more coherently they operate, the more in harmony and in tune and in balance they are. So on the other hand, when the body can't make free radicals due to weak electric magnetic fields, a lack of electron flow is a low light flow, or shortage of transition metals such as iron, copper, manganese, then spooky at a distance also breaks down. That breaks the bond between endocrine glands and the organs they're supposed to regulate. We call that chaos, which represents inflammation, hormone imbalance, malfunction of unknown origin, and disease. So take obesity, for example, and it has 3 things here in the book you'll see. It talks about obesity. I'm trying to make it to focus clear, but the camera's not wanting to, but basically you get the idea. So now we are on page 39, and it says, take obesity, for example. Obese individuals have lost coherence in their body, but their brain still works fine, meaning the circadian clock in the suprachiasmatic nucleus is decoupled from the clock. Again, let's pay close attention to this for people who are overweight, meaning the circadian clock in their suprachiasmatic nucleus, that's in your eye, is decoupled from the clock in the liver and the pancreas, which is below the neck. This impairs metabolism and the whole lot more, putting you at risk for obesity and diabetes. That's where the patches, which reset, repair, and restore all of your circadian rhythms, all of your chemistry, all of the systems, all of the tissue, regulates the light, increasing 1/3 of your previously dormant master smart cells are turned back on. A lot of energy, 33%. And so that's why people have such dramatic and significant effects and results, positive results. The opposite is true in the case of Alzheimer's. The dysfunction is happening from the neck top, the neck up. the suprachiasmatic nucleus gets disconnected from the rest of the brain, but their body organs remain well connected. So brain function deteriorates while weight remains stable. Fertility, when clocks in the leptin receptor and pituitary system, if you were to take your hand and point into your mouth and take the back of your head and point where the two meet in the middle of your head, that's where your pituitary, just a few centimeters away, is you have your pituitary gland and then your pineal gland right above it. So when clocks in the leptin receptor and pituitary system get unyoked from the ovaries or the testes, you can become infertile, lose libido, or become impotent. In case you hadn't noticed, disconnection problems like this are sweeping the population like a plague to end all man, with nothing but silence coming from the establishment to explain why it's happening. Interesting, isn't it? And yet we've known for quite some time, for over 40 years. We've actually known since the 70s about the harms and effects of blue light toxicity. Pretty amazing. In basic terms, when your biology is uncoupled due to a lack of free radicals in the body, organ systems can't talk to each other. Ooh, that's what quantum entanglement does for you in the biological systems. It's the secret signaling mechanisms that keep organ systems perfectly synchronized, which unfortunately is failing or broken in most people today. And that contributes mightily to disease of modern civilization, for which modern medicine has more questions to answer. There, my friends and gems, we are going to finish this particular episode. We're finishing on page 40. When we return, we will come back to how brain cells wake you up and put you to sleep. So this was an interesting chapter. Let me know in the comments below what city, state, or country you're tuning in from. Do you have any comment or any question about any of this and having to do with the circadian rhythm that's set by your suprachiasmatic nucleus and the eye versus the rest of your body, and how heat and cold interact with that, and how there is something that can help you reestablish that connection and restore the regulation of all the different organ systems in your body so that you are connected, happy, and healthy. I'd be more than happy to answer those questions for you. And you can remember to join me daily at 12 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Pacific, and 7 p.m. Pacific time on DameLillianZoom.com to learn more about this life-saving technology, and also to circle back around and continue studying with us the Mitochondriac Manifesto by R.D. Hall. Thanks for tuning in, tapping in, turning on to this episode, and we will see you at the next Zoom. Ciao for now.